Welcome, everyone, to the Ohio Writers Guild. We are so excited to have Jon Gigante. I always say that wrong.
You're good.
It's
You're
just
good.
the end.
Thanks. Good to be
Yes,
here.
yes. Welcome.
Thank
He
you.
is an author. But before we get started chatting with Jon, and I'm going to keep watching as folks come in and allow them to at least chat with us. Before we get started with Jon, I just want to share that I am a passive income mentor. I can help folks learn how to create passive income without having to punch a time clock. And for those that feel like, oh, I'm already retired, whatever, there's all kinds of things you can do for some extra cash flow so that you can live all that fun stuff, that you always wanted to. So anyway, that's what I do. And one of my lanes, of course, is writing. And I was so excited to meet Sandy, and Sandy agreed to be my co host. And so, through meeting Sandy and learning more about writing and publishing, I now, and all of this is after I met Sandy, by the way, I now have just launched my third book. It's a collaborative effort. All three of my books are, because that's kind of the fast track to getting published. So anybody that wants to chat about that, we can. But I want to take this opportunity to turn it over to Sandy because she has an amazing writers workshop coming up in Ohio. So for any of you that are in the Ohio area, you're welcome to attend her workshop, and it's right around the corner. So Sandy, tell us about that.
Hi, good to meet all of you. I hope your Monday is as beautiful as ours is here. I'm in Springfield, Ohio, right on the border of Yellow Springs. And Yellow Springs, Ohio is one of the most unique, probably areas of Ohio, if not this part of the country. And look it up, Yellow Springs, Ohio. The Mills Park Hotel is a beautiful hotel right in the heart of the little village. And that's where we hold a one packed weekend from Friday evening through Sunday noon. And I bring in only two, maybe three guests, featured guests. This year, I have a literary agent called Vicky Salvaggio, a nice Italian name there. Vicky Salvaggio, who owns and is an agent for the Storm Literary Agency. And she's going to talk the whole weekend about what we call the traditional publishing route, where if she accepts your work, she takes it from there. She will offer edits or get editors for you, get whatever you need. She will find the publishing house for you. She will also take about 15% of whatever your book sales are. That's how she gets paid. So she works pretty doggone hard to get you out there because she likes to have an income as well. Although somewhat like Kathy, she's a house flipper on the side. So she's really great where she started as an author and then she went from authoring to agenting, so she never forgets where she came from. And that really subjective world of, why did you turn down my query letter? Or you say you want me to redo 50 pages and send it back to you, and what all those signs mean, which are very important. She's going to be talking the whole weekend about how to pitch your book. You've probably heard about book pitching before. You've got 10 minutes to sell your life by selling your book in those 10 minutes. Actually, you have three. She's going to talk to you for the next seven, but she's going to talk about all how you do that. And yes, she is going to take book pitches. You sign up for them when you get there, and she'll be in the boardroom upstairs at the Mills Park, and so she can have the whole room to herself, just the two of you chatting about your books. She's going to talk about the query letter. That's where if you don't talk face to face, and let's say, oh, a year from now, you've got your book done, you're ready to talk to her about it. Now we get to the part called a query letter. That is 250 words that are extremely important. That's all you have to sell your book. So she'll talk about how to make an effective query letter. And she'll talk about the life of an agent for sure. I had her down for 10 minutes and she asked, could I have more time? So I go, who am I to deny you wanting to talk to us even longer? But that's where the whole weekend is just packed. She's going to talk about how to edit, Whether you're submitting a short story or an essay or a journalistic article, what kind of tips are there for doing that final edit before you submit? So she's talking about that. Also with her is they will probably know each other very well by the end of this weekend, is Juliet Hyland. She has published 25 books in the past 3 years.
Wow.
Working for Harlequin, I know, working for Harlequin Romance, and she just signed a contract for 6 more. And this is a gal who has a day job. Not that writing is also her day job, day, night, early morning. Heaven only knows when she sits down to write, because she has 2 teenagers. She has a dog, a cat, a husband, a house, and all that sort. But of course, she doesn't know. Somebody had asked her, so what do you do to relax? And it's like, well, what do you mean by that? She knows the craft of writing. So even if you're published, even if you consider yourself a very well-written person, well-read person, she will refresh you about how to bring your characters to life, how to make them so that the reader will root for them. Because of course, in the fiction world, you definitely need to be have a story in which the pages will just keep turning, and they're going to tell their friends, you got to read this book, or wow, I really love that character, I want to read the next one, so forth and so on. How do you really do that? Is there an outline for that? And
Mhm.
she's going to have a lot of pen to paper. She's going to have writing exercises right then and there. And then she's going to come back the next day and talk about the 3 key elements of probably even a memoir. It's goal, motivation, and conflict, the big GMC of writing, and using what you wrote on the night before with the characters. She's going to say, all right, now taking these characters, how do you make sure each one has, et cetera, et cetera? You get the idea. And she's going to be a guinea pig for Vicky when she talks about query letters and talks about pitches, and Juliet's more than willing to say, hey, I'll do that. I mean, why not? She does analyze intelligence for the Air Force, so she's brave, very brave. Anyway, there's a lot of community. You're sitting at round tables, good and bad with that sometimes, but you connect with other people. I have open mic reading night on Saturday night where you get up to 10 minutes to read part or all of your story to us. And that's open to the public in Yellow Springs and beyond. And you get to sell your book. If you have a book to sell on Sunday morning, I shifted it over, it used to be Saturday too. Sunday morning, probably the busiest time at the Mills Park Hotel is brunch on Sunday. And from 9:30 to 10:30, we'll still be in the banquet hall. I'll ask you to share a table with one other person selling books. And Juliet, who is amazingly enthusiastic about writing, she's going to be out in the lobby. She's going to be getting people to come in and take a look at your books. So I'm doing everything I can to give you all kinds of experience. And if you don't want to read your own work aloud at open mic, well, we have people who'll read it for you, or you can have a friend do that. So it's constant. I'm kind of thinking by Sunday noon, your probably brain will be ready to explode in a good way. You will have had, it's August 1, 2, and 3. And if you go to the website, and I'll put it in the chat, www.intothespringswritersworkshop.com, you'll see all those details and more, because there are also private critiques. And that's where both Vicky and Juliet will read the first 10 pages of your work and make in-text comments and meet with you that weekend for 10 minutes and talking about it. And I'll tell you, they're limited to 10 each, and I have one spot open for Vicky. And she's also going to critique query letters. So if you're interested in that, it's an extra fee, but well worth the extra fee, and with all the time that she'll spend on your work. We have lunch here together. There are refreshments. So I make it as worthwhile as possible. So I hope you consider it. August 1, 2, and 3, Mills Park Hotel in Yellow Springs, Ohio. Thanks.
Sandy, thank you so much. Now, if you haven't been to a writer's workshop, it changed how I think about writing. Because I didn't know what I didn't know. And so it wasn't until I started going to some writers' workshops and I started hearing the lingo and I started meeting other writers and I started talking about, how other writers were finding time to write. And I just had to learn what all of that meant, just saying, I want to be a writer. uh, Oftentimes you don't know what steps to take to get there. And so going to writers' workshops was huge for me. And that is really what kind of launched me into being able to put my thoughts in some kind of an order that I could put into a book that I could finally get published. And again, we talked about traditional publishing. There is all kinds of publishing out there. Sandy put all the information in the chat, so please copy and save that if you're interested at all to come to the workshop. And just know that it will change how you think about writing, and it will also inspire you to get something down on paper because there's a lot of little exercises while you're there that gets you writing. And again, I can remember years and years and years saying, I think I want to flip houses, or I think I want to have this career or that career. Nothing happens until you start. So simply start. And the best way to start is to go to a writer's workshop. Of the writers, I'm going to one in Cincinnati this weekend. But my favorite one by far still is Sandy's. So much so that, and of course, Sandy is my co-host here on the Ohio Writers Guild. So I have created a tribe trip to her workshop. So anyone that is in my tribe, we invite you to come to the workshop, and that's where I want to. And Tracy just asked if anyone could see her. No, I haven't actually moved you up to be one of the panelists, Tracy, but hang in there. You can chat with us. So hang in there. But I want to turn it over to Sally now, because Sally is also a co-host. She is a blogger, and Sally is a travel agent. So if any of you want to travel to Yellow Springs for the writer's workshop, Sally can help you with those travel plans. If it's something that you're not comfortable doing yourself, Sally can help you with that. We saw in the chat here, some folks were interested. Carrie said she's very interested. She said she missed the first 7 minutes of the call. Not to worry, we're recording and you can always go back for the replay. But I want to turn it over to Sally, and Sally, tell us what it is that you do and how you can help these folks.
My name is Sally. My company is Mermaid Travel. I've been a mermaid for 20 years and over. Live very close to Kathy, about a mile or so away. But what I do is I'm a full service travel agent, but I also I plan senior trips, group trips for seniors. That's my specialty. Groups are my specialty, but I also help people that have some disability that may need like oxygen or motorized scooters, things like that. I do blog, not very often. My blog is called Embrace the Unexpected. I missed the publication for your book, Katie's book, to get an article in this time, but I did it the other time. So I never really considered myself a writer. I had a lot of ideas, but I realized everything. If you look up my website, mermaidtravel.tours, everything there is what I created. And when I have trips coming up, like to the Alpine Alps, the Swiss terrain, Swiss villages, trips to Canyon country, but I have to put Canva is my friend. I have to put all of that together. So I'm the one who does that, good or bad. That's my writing. That's what I do. I don't blog very often, but I sort of blog when I post things on Facebook about trips or different things. But that's what I do. So I am not an author, but I create a lot of writing.
Well, actually, Sally is an author. She just hasn't thought of herself as one
Yeah.
yet because she mentioned the magazine. We do have a magazine called Freestyle Living, and it comes out quarterly. And so many of you on this call are staff writers for the magazine, including Sally. And so she is published because being published, it can mean a lot of things. And these days with self-publishing, everyone can be published. Now, that doesn't always make it good. There is a lot of writing that isn't good. But again, you have to get started. So don't feel that you can't, that you can't write or that you can't be published. And Sally can help you with any of those travel plans, not as well as the trips that she already has planned for her tribe. She can help you if you want to come to the
Oh yeah, for sure.
conference.
And it's
Yes,
very
step
nice to meet
one.
everybody.
Cheryl says step one is recognizing yourself as a writer. How true, Cheryl. Thank you so much.
Okay, thank you.
Yep, thank you for that. Okay, we are now going to talk to Jon. Jon, thank you so much for being with us.
Of course.
Jon,
Pleasure to be
Jon
here.
and I are in another writers group together, and Jon is now a published author. In 2013, he nearly became another statistic. His job hung in the balance. The condition of his marriage was even worse. And when he looked in the mirror, he didn't like the person looking back at him. So, as a father of two, he knew that something needed to change. And he feels he received a second chance. Working harder wasn't the answer. Focusing more wasn't going to fix this time. So, Jon needed something drastic. So, he started paying attention. He started paying intention. And when he did, the solution emerged slowly but steadily. So, Jon, give us a little bit of your backstory. What inspired you to write this book? And give us a little bit of a backstory on what prompted you to do this.
Sure. Oh my gosh, there's a lot to unpack. Thank you so much, first of all, for having me. It's always an honor to be in a group like this. And Sandy, your conference or workshop or whatever you're calling it sounds fantastic. And I'll do a plug for Yellow Springs. It's such a cool area. I actually just stayed at that hotel with Carrie Oberbrunner. I think some of you may know him.
Yes.
Kathy, I know you do. So he's a professor at Cedarville now. And he had me, I came in and spoke last fall at one of their conferences, and we both stayed at that hotel. It's fantastic.
Wow.
So,
Yeah.
a little plug, if you're going Yellow Springs, it's a gem of a place. You'd never think it's there, and then all of a sudden it like comes out of nowhere, and it's very quaint, very cool. So yeah, so it's interesting, right? Let me first say I've been in that. I stand shoulder to shoulder with many of you if you're saying you're not a writer, because I was that person for so many years. And I'll take you back a little bit. My mom was an English teacher, so I grew up with, and both my parents were teachers. My dad was a health and physical education teacher as well, and I married a school teacher, by the way. My wife was a school teacher until we started a family, and she stays at home now. Um, so I've always loved teachers, but my mom from an early age always instilled in me creativity and writing and speaking and all this stuff. But I didn't publish my first book until 2022. And I was that person. So I started my first blog, I think in 2009, which was come from the corporate space and sales. I just left a few months ago to do this work full time. But I've always been into productivity. So it's funny. My first blog was called 1440, which is 1440 minutes in a day. So it was all about how to be more productive. And I was if anybody's heard of Getting Things Done, David Allen's work, Stephen Covey's work, the 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. So it's funny how that it evolves over time. So I went from 1440 blog to something called the Catalyst Project, where I basically wanted to invest in other people's stories and told other people's stories. But I always had a block that I wasn't a writer. I would actually say this a lot. So when I met Carrie, actually 2012 or 13, and I started to get involved with a lot of his stuff, you're the average of the 5 people you spend the most time with. It's a Jim Rohn quote, which is such an amazing quote. A lot of you have probably heard of it. But over the course of time, I started to hang around authors, and I'm like, I'm going to be an author someday. And of course, everybody tells you like, no, all you got to do is write. If you show up tomorrow and write and publish something, even if it's a blog, you're an author. You're writing. So fast forward, quite a few years, I had the chance to, I mean, the conferences are amazing too, guys. I'll tell you, like anytime I've always gotten fruit, any conference I've invested in and gone to is so cool. That's why I lit up when Sandy was talking. But I had a chance early on, 2012, when I was going to various conferences. I met a very young up and coming author by the name of James Clear. Some of you may know that name. He wrote a book called Atomic Habits in 2018, which is the #1 book in the world to this day. Sold over 20 million copies. And if you talk to James, he'd tell you like he had no expectation that it was going to be anywhere as big as it has. But James Wright, I highly recommend reading his work too. He's got a weekly newsletter called 321, and the book's fantastic. But I had a chance to see his journey from the start. And he was he's still a young guy, mid-30s. I mean, he published Atomic Habits, I think, in his late 20s. He's book #2 for him's coming out, or he's in the process of writing it. But he's got this thing that helped me immensely when I started writing called identity-based habits. So you think about a lot of times we start with who we want to be from an outcome perspective. And what I learned from him was no, identity based is I'm just going to show up today and be the person I aspire to be. So if you want to be a writer, show up today, and maybe it's after this call, and write 50 words. Guess what? You're a writer. And then show up again tomorrow and write another 50 words. And then it's a game of math, really. And that's how I eventually published a couple of years ago. I turned it into a math equation. It literally was 2021. I started the process with Carrie and his team. I knew I wanted to publish a year later. And it was a math equation. It was, if I wanted to write a 50,000 page book, divide it by the number of days. And I set a goal to write 500 words a day. So crazy process too. And I want to share this with you guys because it's kind of a cool thing. So this is my book called With Intention. But before I wrote, about a year before, it looks kind of the same, right? Well, this is just the cover and the back cover, which Kathy, it was great that you read some of the back cover at the start. So the first thing we did before I even started writing the book was create the cover and the back cover. Just to have, I'm a visual guy. I would argue every human's probably visual in nature, this is actually Atomic Habits inside here. You can see the name of it, right? You can see it, Atomic Habits.
Oh, cool.
And so I put it up, in my office in front of me while I was writing. And I had the visual of like, this is, I'm a writer, just keep writing. And little by little, brick by brick, the goal comes to fruition. But here's what's interesting too. And I don't know if this would resonate with anybody, but I think, I'm a former athlete too. I played collegiate soccer. And so I love to be active. I found that I'm most creative when my heart rate's up. So I do a lot of public speaking. And one of my speaking coaches taught me this, that maybe you should rehearse while you're walking, not necessarily like jogging. That's too hard to do, but even a walk, you get your heart rate up. So anytime I rehearse a speech, I would like have my script printed out and I walk, for an hour. And it's amazing how there's something that engages the brain while your heart rate's up a little bit. So, the whole first draft of my book, I worked a lot on the table of contents first because we wanted it to be very frictionless for the reader to read. And I had it up on my computer right next to my Peloton bike, like a chair, my table of contents, and I spoke it out. I'm actually on my phone because my computer's not working right now, but on an application called Otter AI. And all I did was table of contents, and I did a lot of pre-work. So I had table of contents, a story I wanted to tell, the point I wanted to make, and then I just spoke the book out. And in a series of probably 3 or 4 bike rides, I had the first draft, and it was not good, by the way. It was just very, choppy, but it was the first draft. And then Otter, you can take it, copy and paste it into a Word or Google Doc. And then that's when the sculpting happens from there. And the other thing I'll say too, and I'm sorry, I'm kind of jumping around.
No, this is great because this is what I teach my students all the time. In Google Docs, they can click the microphone and just get it out there.
Yeah, there you go.
Get it out there on paper. Yeah.
Yeah. And so, and I've been fortunate to have some amazing coaches and other people I've been involved with that coached me. I learned so much from so many people, but someone told me at one point, writing and editing are 2 totally different things. right?
Correct.
So two different brain functions almost. So it's all like when you're writing, you're just writing. And then editing, you almost want to let it sit for a day or whatever it is, and then have editing as a separate session. Or if you hire an editor, I mean, there's a lot of different things you can do to outsource work or whatnot. And I found that to be valuable for me of just when I was writing, and it was kind of free writing of sorts. Of course, I just shared with you, the first draft was my voice. And being active, that heart rate thing was big for me. So I say that because if you're sitting at a desk and you're stuck and you have staring at the blank paper, maybe try a different method to get your ideas out. Or maybe, guess what? Maybe it's pen and paper even, and it's not on a computer. I'm trying to think of the author's name. A very famous fiction author writes all his books in a notebook. And that's to this day today, right? Which is crazy to think about, but there's definitely so many different styles to get the work done. But I think it's the thing with the habits is just identity, brick by brick. If you want to write a book, do the math and just show up every day and do a little bit. And you're going to miss some days. I miss days, and you just get back on the horse and you go again. And it's amazing. It's like compound interest with money, right? If you invest $100 a month over time in the right things, it's amazing where it'll be in 10 years. It's the same thing with anything, I would argue, but writing for sure, it all adds up.
Well, I can remember saying one time to a friend of mine, I said, "Oh my gosh, it's going to take me a year to write a book." And she said, "Well, you're going to live the year anyway. You might as well write the book."
Yeah.
So I get
Very
it.
true.
In the book, you introduced with intention wheel.
Yeah.
Can you break down the 5
Mhm.
components of that and how might that help us?
Yeah. Okay. So would it help to give? Well, let me give you a little bit of context here because
Okay.
I'll try to keep it somewhat brief before I go into it. Um, I said I grew up an athlete. We talked at the beginning. I was the son of an immigrant. My dad was from Italy, came over as a kid. Very poor family when my grandparents brought their family over. Literally lived in an attic in Cleveland with like 3 other families. Very blue collar, the American dream. 40s, this is the 40s and 50s. And so fast forward quite a few years, my dad was the first person to go to college in his family. My mom was actually the first person to go to college in her family. So I mentioned they both became teachers. Um, my dad ran a second business, a grocery store with his brother. But I came home from school one day in 5th grade, and my mom said to me and my 2 older brothers, "Guys, your dad's in the hospital. He had a nervous breakdown." And of course, I'm in 5th grade, right? And I'm like, "What's a nervous breakdown? I don't know what that means." And so dad goes away for a couple weeks. Uh, Dad was a very happy-go-lucky guy too. Like, everybody loved him. Came back, and it was like we just swept it under the rug. It's like we never talked about it. And he went back to work, and we all went on with our lives, and it was, a great childhood. I didn't think anything of it. Fast forward quite a few years. So I played soccer, as I mentioned. So I was fortunate enough to earn a scholarship in college. Um, but here's the other piece of the story too. I'll tell you. I had a guidance counselor call me into her office. I remember this in 5th grade, and she said, "Jon, how you doing?" And I said, "I'm good. Straight A's. I'm a budding soccer star. I'm fine. I don't need to talk to anybody." Um, and so again, I didn't even know, by the way, that I was doing this. It was just the way we operated, and it was no fault of my parents. It's just blue collar work ethic, and you just move on with life. So fast forward a few years, I go to Bowling Green is where I went to college, played my freshman season. I come home, parents get in a huge fight. Thankfully, I'm there to break it up. And my mom leaves and their marriage ends. And so pretty devastating situation. Dad cries in my arms. First time I've ever seen my dad cry. And I go back to college for my sophomore year, and I didn't feel like I could grieve. I felt like, it's their loss, and let me just move on. And so, but it was the first time I kind of felt my head crack a little bit as far as like from a performance standpoint. So this high level Division I collegiate sports, and I just became very inconsistent at my performance. And it was pretty devastating to me because I couldn't perform at the level I knew. And my dad talk about identity again. Identity as a writer. Identity is. And by the way, no no faith foundation, no spirituality at this point in my life. And I was pretty broken, but I never shared anything with any of my teammates, coaches, nothing. And I just, because my identity was in a soccer ball, I was pretty devastated, dealt with a bunch of mental health stuff, drug abuse, alcohol abuse, ended up moving to Chicago after college. Was still good enough to like make ends meet. I got a sales job with the software company, but 10 years later, I start having panic attacks speaking, right? So not good for a salesperson, by the way. And by the way, in my freshman year of high school, I was a speech champion at St. Edward's High School in Cleveland. So I was good enough from a talent perspective to speak. That was part of the story too. I probably didn't work that hard at it. Got a little bit arrogant with it. But I say it's, I never took out my trash. You think about, you all have the trash comes every week and we have to take our garbage can out, and the company, we have Rumpke here in Columbus, they come and they take it and it's emptied and we bring it back in. If you don't, it gets stinky and smelly and all that stuff. We're the same way as humans. If we don't take out our trash, that's what happens to us. And that's where I was. So of course I was having panic attacks speaking. So the book is actually about the road back. So I knew I had the skill set, but again, at both the sports level and now at the business level, I had been at the top, but I have also crashed and burned. But I knew, look, for me, my faith is a big part of this. So God had me. I didn't yet really have a relationship with God at that point, but that's part of this journey too, that I had to fully surrender and say, this is not about me. This is about you, Lord. Take the wheel, really, that song. And that was only like 12 years ago. So I literally went from, I knew, and some of you have probably seen the movie Top Gun, right? Is it? Yeah. So the first Top Gun, I know there's been a new one, but Goose dies. He was a pilot. And if you haven't seen it, the one pilot dies, and Maverick, this was Tom Cruise, they bring him in and he's afraid to fly. And they said, the guys that ran the thing said, we got to get him back in the plane as soon as possible, or else he's never going to fly again. And so I knew when I had this one panic attack where I had to leave the room in Chicago during a sales presentation, an internal meeting at my company, super embarrassing. And I faked a headache, by the way. That's the other part. I was too afraid to even say, like, this is actually what's happening, guys. But I went to Toastmasters, if you've ever heard of that, which is a speaking club, for 2 years, every Thursday, Vineyard Church in Columbus, 7 a.m. And I just rebuilt my speaking muscles. And I remember I had a piece of paper, like the first speech I ever gave, you had to just talk about your background. And I remember having it on here and like my hands shaking, right? Now, remember, I was a speech champion, so I could do it, but then I lost the ability to, just like I lost the ability to kick a soccer ball, essentially. And so thankfully, I met guys like James at that time, or Carrie at that time, that poured into me, and learning, habits and identity. For me, that faith journey, again, really, really important. So surrounding myself with the right people. But the key unlock for me was actually sharing the story, honestly, and being okay not being okay. And so there's a Bible verse, regardless of what faith you have, it can help anybody, in 2 Corinthians, where Paul's asking Jesus to remove a thorn from his side. And Jesus says, no, my power is made perfect in your weakness. So when you are weak, then you are strong. And I read the Bible for the first time at this point. I'd never read it before. And that just hit me so hard. And I said, oh my gosh, this is it. If I can talk about this in public, speech champion to can't speak anymore. Now I'm going to go on this journey to speak again. And I'm going to share this because I want to build into everybody and inspire people that no matter what failures they've had, they can make it back. And I talk to younger athletes all the time now, and I talk about this, and younger salespeople, who are every human being, right? We all go through stuff, but we all have a chance to redeem, right? It's the resurrection mindset, and it's death to life, and I think we all have the power to do that. And so, the book, and long-winded backstory, Kathy, but I think it's important. And so,
it is important. Thank you.
Yeah. So the wheel. So I created what's called the with intention wheel, and there's two elements to this. There's self-intention and others' intention. I believe we have to build ourselves, but it's not selfish. It's so we can serve others. Okay. So the with intention wheel for self are 5 things. And I have a coin here. If I was with you guys, I would give you a coin, but and I believe in Jim Collins wrote Good to Great back in like
Mhm.
2000. Amazing book about businesses and what they've done to be great. And he talks about this concept of a flywheel, and basically the best people or businesses have a process where they continuously improve, and then it builds on itself and it eventually gains steam, and it just becomes this incredible process of execution and excellence. And so there are five steps, and I can send you. And by the way, I'm happy to send a PDF copy of the book too, if you want to pass it out, Kathy, if you're good with that.
Sure.
Um,
Absolutely. Yeah.
so there's 5 steps. Awareness is always the first step. We have to have self-awareness. Agency is the second step. So this is taking ownership, and that's a mindset shift. And then third is ambition. So that is your future state and where you want to go. So I believe everybody needs a bold vision. And I'll tell you, I spent 25 years in strategic software sales. My career changed when I went from being a selfish sales rep, it was all of me and my quota, to really caring about the client and asking one simple question. I would get on a whiteboard in a boardroom and I would say, Mr. and Mrs. Client, forget about our products. If we're sitting here a year from now, what's a 10 out of 10 for you? If all the stars align. And we go through a process in an hour or 2 hours, and we'd write a vision on the board. And it was amazing what transpired. These companies, literally, a lot of them never really did this type of work before. So they would almost build their business plans in front of us. And then I'd be able to go back and basically, we'd take pictures of the board too, by the way, and I'd show them. And I never had to sell again, because it was like, look, you told me this is where you want to go. You told me this is your vision. I have a way for you to potentially get there. By the way, you could say no all day long, right? You always, we're in sales, it's okay for the customer to say no. It may not be the best fit. But I think as humans, it's the same thing. We need a vision. We need a bold vision, 10 years, 50, 20, and 1 year vision. So I would ask you guys, if we're sitting here a year from now on this same call, what's happened for you? What does your life feel like? What relationships are you building? Who are you serving? Are you a published author? Right? Do that work. You can do it in 5 minutes, or you can do it in 5 hours, but doing that work, getting pen to paper, is really, really powerful. And then the fourth step in the process is action. And they're all A's, by the way, for a reason. I call finding your A game. So you got to take action. So you think about, let me back up. Awareness is the first step. That's your starting point. You got to take ownership or have agency. Ambition is your future state, where you want to go, but then you got to close the gap, right? So how you close the gap is you take action. And then the final step is adjustment. So it's this constant cycle, I believe, of those 5 steps of assessing where you're at, doing the work, making the proper adjustments. It's an average of 5 people you spend most time with. Such a powerful quote, because you need trusted advisors around you. You need a tribe. Kathy, I love what you're doing here. You have a built-in tribe right now. You can hold each other accountable, set goals together, and who knows, maybe even do some writing together. I know some writing clubs. Maybe you guys do that.
Mhm.
Yeah.
We do.
Awesome.
Yes.
Yeah. Awesome. That's incredible. Yes. Intentional time. And so that's the self wheel. The others wheel is an acronym for serve. So there's, again, you build yourself so you can serve others. And so it's sincerity. You always got to be sincere and authentic. Empathy, so you think from the other person's perspective. Resourcefulness is third. So you figure out a way to get the job done and serve someone. Always want to add value. And then finally, what energy are you bringing to the table? And I think that's something we all have to look at, and how do we fill people's buckets and that sort of thing. And I think those two together are a really powerful recipe for really good things. And so, yeah, so that's essentially the book. I'll send it to you guys, but it's a never ending process. I haven't figured it all out. I've done a lot of work in this world. I do a lot of executive coaching and speaking and consulting now. So it's so fun to be able to pay it forward. And that's the other thing I'll say too. Once you get somewhere, pay it forward. Bring someone else along with you.
Yes.
I think there's magic in that.
Oh, tons of magic in that. I really appreciate. Boy, I'm telling you, I took a lot of notes, Jon. Now, this is amazing stuff, because it's exactly where we find ourselves, and it's exactly what a lot of us need. I know writing a book takes a lot of discipline, and sometimes we can learn from other authors when they've struggled, because it makes us know that we're not alone in the struggle. Where did you struggle getting this book across the finish line?
Sure. Oh my gosh. The whole journey was a struggle. Like, let me just say, this is part of the process is embracing the struggle, right? Like life is full of blessings and battles every day. It's our perspective on them. And so if you haven't read Stephen Pressfield, read his work all day long, The War of Art. He's got another one. I won't say the exact title. Basically put your butt in the seat. He talks a lot about the muse and how the muse is BS, right? The muse is showing up every day at 9 a.m. and writing for an hour or 2 hours or 3 hours, whatever that is. And so for me, it was studying other writers and embracing the pain of writing. And there were moments like my best moments were either on that Peloton bike, knowing that maybe traditional writing isn't my best structure, but I had some amazing writing sessions in the middle of the night. I found it wasn't waking up early for me because I have 3 fairly young kids. So if there was a time limit on me that I had to be done, there was too much of a squeeze. But if I could start my writing session at 11 p.m. and write till 2 a.m., 3 a.m., the quiet of the night was incredible for me. And I feel like I was 10 times more productive too. And then the math thing and just having that, hey, I'm just going to write 500 words today, and then I'm going to show up again and write 500 words tomorrow. And sometimes I'd write more. And I tracked it in a Google document too. So like having a process was really important. But I'll share this story with you because I think it's really powerful for people. I had lunch with James Clear in 2016, 2 years before he published Atomic Habits, North Star Cafe at Easton and here in Columbus. He looked me in the eye and he said, John, I don't think I'm meant to write a long form book. He had missed his second deadline with his publisher. He was like battling them with the structure of the book. He was very popular in writing his blog. So he figures out a way. He had an assistant at the time. I think he gave her all his social media passwords on Mondays and said, you are not to give me these until Friday. And because I'm going to dedicate, I got to go all in on writing this book. So here, if he can do it, right? Now he wrote the most popular book in the world. Like everybody struggles. Look at Jerry Seinfeld. If you look at any of his writing process, and here's a guy who has a habit every day, he writes on like a yellow legal pad. He talks about embracing the messiness, and 99% of the jokes he writes, he throws away. They're terrible, but 1% is gold. But it's that habit of showing up every day. And I think for me, I've actually been writing on LinkedIn pretty much every day for the last year. That publish every day thing and being in the lab of sorts and just its practice for me changed everything. There's another great book I'll recommend called Show Your Work. Austin Kleon is the author. He also wrote a book called Steal Like an Artist, but Show Your Work helped me immensely for all like the social media stuff last year of just publish. Not look, we think everybody's judging everything we're doing, but I don't know if you guys have heard of the spotlight effect. I've talked to my 15-year-old daughter a lot about it, but we think everybody's looking at us and they're not because everybody's so worried about themselves and their own lives. Right. So just put it out there. Like no one's going to care. And who cares if it's not that good? You just keep showing up and you're going to, as you invest in tribes like this or conferences, you're going to get better at the craft. Sandy, I love what you said about like the pen to paper with the one individual that you mentioned, like writing exercises. Sounds like you guys may do that. There's so much good for that, for just learning how to be a better writer. Yeah.
Well, I think we're our own worst enemy. Like oftentimes we have all this self-doubt. We feel like we're an imposter.
Sure.
Again, how does one overcome that if that's where we find ourselves, or anyone that's listening to this call later? How do you overcome that imposter syndrome?
Sure. Acknowledge it. That's awareness. And guess what? There's research on this. If you don't have imposter syndrome, you may have a problem. Right. And there are people out there that don't have it and pretty arrogant, right? Like, come on, and everybody shows their highlight reel on social media. So you see it and everybody's got garbage they're dealing with. So they're probably hiding it. I'll recommend more books to you. Overcoming the Imposter. My friend of mine wrote it. Chris Kelso. It was all about imposter syndrome. So he's done a bunch of research on this. And so I think just the awareness that we have it, this is part of life, and like, okay, so what? What are we gonna do about it? Like, just show up and make it happen anyway. And once we get out of our own way, man, I used to want to be so perfect. Like as an athlete, I wanted to be the perfect soccer player. And that hurt me so much because if I had a bad touch during the game, I would just, that little voice in my head would say, like, you suck. You're not good enough at this level. And I talk to my son's an athlete now too. He's 17, and I talk to him all the time because he deals, every human deals with this. But it's how do we quiet the voice in our head? And I think the first step is actually to be okay with it and not run away from it and acknowledge, like, you're here, and I'm just going to deal with you, and I'm going to keep. It's being comfortable in the uncomfortable, right? I'm going to keep moving into it. There's an awesome documentary on Netflix called Stutz, and it's about Jonah Hill, who's an actor. This is Phil Stutz is his psychologist. Fantastic, Hollywood produced, but he does a documentary about his psychologist. And what Stutz, the biggest thing he helped Jonah Hill with, and a lot of other people that he works with, is this thing called the reversal of desire. And all it is very simple. Whatever it is you fear the most, you move into. And just taking that step into the fear removes a little bit of the fear, maybe not all of it. And I can tell you guys, as someone who's had panic attacks speaking, I have scar tissue presenting. I've given speeches to a couple thousand people before. You think I wasn't scared? I absolutely was scared, but I also switch my terminology. I call it excited now. Butterflies actually don't go away. If you're nervous, it means you care, right? The fear means you care. You want to do something good, but can we change our view and our perspective on that fear? I think that's the crucial piece here. So if you have imposter syndrome, good. I applaud you that you're normal. Congratulations. But then what are you going to do about it? Keep going. Move into it.
Yeah, I love that. I love that. Thank you so much for that, Jon.
Yeah.
I know one of the things they asked me at my last conference, I was on a panel as one of the speakers, and they said, what's the one thing that you wish you would have practiced more throughout your life? And my answer was, as I wish I had done this for my daughter. I wish my family had done it for me, and I wish I had done it for my daughter growing up, and I didn't. But I wish that we could talk more about failing forward.
Yeah.
And I wish now that I would have asked my daughter every day when she came home from school, what did you fail at today? Which would encourage her to maybe try things that maybe she was afraid to try, because it would teach her that it was okay to fail at something, or to say, I tried out, but I didn't do very well, but at least I tried out. At least I did this. I tried to make a go of it, and maybe this isn't for me, but I at least gave it a try. And to eliminate that whole feeling that if you fail, that you are a failure, which is not true, but that's what we tell ourselves. Can you share a personal experience where a failure for you actually led to growth?
Yeah, I mean, for me, I'm living it, right? And I pinch myself that I get to do work like this and speak on stages and coach and consult with companies now, because I can tell you and I wouldn't change any of my journey, by the way. So all the failures on the soccer field, the failures speaking, the family stuff, whatever adversity you go through becomes part of who you are. It's like a mosaic bowl, right? Mosaic's just broken pieces put back together and makes this beautiful bowl. We all have a chance to do that in our lives. So for me, when I go and speak on a stage and I have I don't know, typically a 40-ish year old male sales executive comes up to me and says, thank you, let me share my story. To provide an outlet for people that, we're so prideful as humans, and we're so afraid to show weakness. And I think for me, being able to unlock and unleash people is such a gift. I don't take it for granted. It's a gift from God that I've been able to do this work. And I truly believe all the struggles along the way have led me here. And so I think everybody's got a story. Every one of you has something inside of you. And if there's brokenness there or struggle, I'm sorry. I want to be empathetic to that, but you can use it for good. Everybody's got something. And this is what I say about paying it forward. It's the hero's journey is Joseph Campbell's work, is this idea of you go through something, right? You're on a path, usually you go through something, a guide comes along to help, and then you come back to save the day. Like every Hollywood movie's made off this, but that's our lives too. We have a chance. If we can do good with our story, whatever the trials and tribulations have been, we can pay it forward and help somebody else.
Jon, that's wonderful. I love everything that you're doing. A lot of our listeners they're a little confused about the whole publishing process. So I want to talk just a bit about that. How did you decide to go with the publishing route that you decided to go with? And I've shared my story on why I decided to be in the collaborative books. And then, of course, Sandy has these wonderful agents and publishing companies at her writers' workshops. And so just to give an overview to all of our listeners, you have traditional publishing all the way on one side, you have self-publishing all the way on the other side, and you have 1,000,001 hybrids in the middle. And those are all the vanity presses and, tons and tons of options. And I'll say this, there are some scams. So be careful out there. Don't be writing a check until you actually, vet whatever it is that publishing company you're going to go with. But be careful and make sure that it is legitimate, because there are a lot of scams out there as well. How did you decide your publishing route?
Yeah, I would say probably because I had the relationship with Carrie. She's a very close friend. And so Carrie Oberbrunner runs a company, a publishing company, a hybrid. And I didn't know any of this before I started the process, right? So, I knew some authors, but James was traditionally published. He had a pretty big following. So, usually, at least my perspective was, and I didn't have a big following, was unless you did, it was hard to get a book deal. So I decided, I guess, to self-publish, but then again, it became a hybrid because I hired Carrie directly to help me with like the developmental editing process and that sort of thing, which again, I didn't even understand all the different editing types there were either. So it was probably more of proximity and knowing like, all right, I just made the decision to write the book. I knew someone there. I did investigate a couple other hybrid publishers, but there's no problem with traditional either. As I've jumped into this, and I plan on writing more books, so I would absolutely entertain that. I think it's a fine process. I've heard mixed reviews on the marketing end of things that, a lot, even if you get a book deal, it don't really help a lot with marketing. And that's been one of of course, with hybrid or self, you're marketing yourself. But I would say that you got to market. The marketing of the book is probably equally as important as the writing of it, which is hard for a lot of people to hear if you want to sell a lot of books and get it out there. If you're just okay publishing, it becomes harder, I think. So it was probably more just already knowing some publishers in the hybrid sense and just going down that path. And I don't know what I'll do in the future.
Well, thank you for sharing that. I always teach my students, I always ask them, what end result are you looking for? What is the objective of writing this book? What are you hoping to achieve at the other end? And then reverse engineer that and say, if this is your goal, then what is the best publishing route for you to get from point A to point B and reach that goal? And so for me, and again, we're just being authentic here. For me, I just wanted to get published. And that just seemed like such pie in the sky, like, oh, someday, somewhere, somehow, I'm going to be a published author. And so, like you, Jon, I built some relationships and knew that these gals were legitimate and they were authentic and they had a history of getting the job done. And so, like you, I decided to use, one of those publishers there in the middle. I didn't self-publish, nor did I go with one of the big traditional publishers. And it reached my goal for what I wanted to be published. And of course, we all dream of, being a #1 best-selling author. And that was one of their guarantees, is that we would come out as a best-selling author in at least one or more categories on Amazon. And so I accomplished that by choosing the publishing house that I chose. And so again, there's 1,000,001 hybrids in there. And so my advice to all of you is maybe to reverse engineer that, decide what your goals are with your book. Is your goal, are you a mystery writer and you just want to sell thousands of copies? You're going to publish differently than if you just want to get published for the first time. There's a big gap in there as to what your goal is. So, so I would reverse engineer that. What's your thought on that, Jon?
Yeah, I love it. I wouldn't change anything. I think that's it. What do you want the outcome to be? And then you can take the appropriate steps. Now, you got to think through the financial piece, right? Because there's an investment part of this where I come from a space where I wanted to invest. I know I have certain strengths and certain weaknesses. And so I decided to invest in a team and a process. I realized not everybody may have the funds to do that or want to do that. Like you could go write something today and publish it on Amazon if you really wanted to.
Sure, absolutely.
And I don't think there's anything wrong with, hey, I want to be a published author and let me just do it as inexpensively as possible and get something out there. That's okay too. You just got to do your due diligence and understand, like, if you have a team, it's maybe going to cost a little bit, or if you want to do it a certain way to align with, there's a bunch of companies out there that you can align with that help you through the process. Because I had no clue what I was doing, so I needed the help, frankly, to go through the process, which I wouldn't trade it for the world. It was very helpful for me.
Yes, I get that. If you could just give one piece of advice to all of our listeners, Jon, what would it be?
Start today, whatever it is you want to do. I mean, life, we're not promised tomorrow, right? So go after it today. Don't let your fears and doubts hold you back. I'm not going to promise they're going to go away, but move into them. And as long as you're focused, I had a speaking coach that totally changed the way I thought about speaking. He said to me a couple years ago, be helpful, not good. And it just changed everything for me because it took the pressure off. So now when I go and speak, even today, it's like, I just want to serve you guys. I want to be helpful. Yeah, I mean, I'm not going to be perfect in everything I say. So you're for writing, be helpful, not good. Of course, you want to write a good book, and you'll do the work and edit and everything else. But man, if you just focus on serving the reader and the people in front of you, that's where the magic is.
Absolutely. So I don't know about the rest of you, but have you felt the magic today with Jon? I certainly have. Jon, thank you so much for being so authentic and sharing your story with us. I really appreciate you. I want to open it up to any questions. So if anyone has any questions for Jon, we're just going to open it up for a few moments. You can click your little audio button to unmute, and all of you have the ability to unmute, and you can ask Jon any question you would like. Before we end the call today. And then, Jon, I would like for you to go over to the chat and make sure it says to everyone, and tell us how we can connect with you and the services that you offer.
Jon, this is Carrie. What is the hybrid publishing that you mentioned?
And Jon, you're on mute, so make sure you unmute.
Okay, sorry about that. Hybrid's just a mix. Well, it's self-publishing, but with help, right? So essentially the difference, at least in Kathy or Sandy, correct me, at least from my perspective, you're paying someone to be a part of their process, and they help. Like for me, my experience was they helped with all the back end setting up, making sure it was in the right format, getting it on Amazon, all that stuff. I did an Audible book as well.
So they would help with like marketing, like you said, as well.
Yeah, typically, like I paid for an additional marketing package, right? So those types of companies, a lot of them I think have a all you can eat, like you pay us X amount and we'll help you with, once you write the book, some of it's editing, some of it's, the whole package, marketing, all the back end stuff. There are ways to do that, by the way, on your own, but for me, it just made sense to invest in having someone help me. I knew that wasn't my strength.
Is there any watch outs for, like Kathy, you were mentioning, there can be some scams. Is there anything to look out for when you're kind of going the hybrid, but paying for extra marketing route?
Yes. The one thing that Jon mentioned, and I can't express this enough, he mentioned relationship. He knew Carrie from a different avenue, if you will. He knew about Carrie, he knew who Carrie was, and he actually knew Carrie and built relationship, and then decided to go ahead and am I correct, Jon? And then get involved with
That's
Carrie as far as publishing. My journey was the same. I was on social media and was in several different groups where I physically could see and talk to the gals that I eventually signed on with. And I got, it was a year. I was in different groups with them for over a year and felt that they were very authentic and knew the other book projects they had done and had gotten to build a relationship with some of the other authors and determined that yes, they were delivering on their promises. So it was probably a year before I signed on and decided to sign on with a book project with them. So to answer your question, it's about relationship. It's just knowing the people and knowing that knowing that they're going to deliver what they say they're going to deliver. Now, if you're just starting and you've not been in any of those groups and you don't know where to start, I would ask for some references and maybe connect with some of those references and say, what was your experience with this publisher?
I mean, when you go to a publishing house, is it worthwhile to, let's say, how do I say this? Like, let's say they specialize in memoirs versus romance novels. I mean, is that something you want them experienced in whatever you're wanting to put out, or does it not matter so much?
I would say yes, it matters, especially if there's a marketing piece to their product, because they already have the audience. So yes, so if you're purchasing a marketing piece as well, then it would be definitely to your advantage that they'd be experienced in the style of writing that you want to do, the genre.
Okay. Very helpful. Thank you.
Carrie, thank you so much for your questions. Anyone else have a question for Jon or myself or Sandy or Sally?
I always have a question if no one else does.
Sure.
I thought it was a riot that you started with the title and cover of your book. More than anything else, we're so worried about the first page, the first sentence, the first word, and here you are. Hey, I'm all done, and it's going to look like this. So why, with nothing on the page, why did you name it With Intention? And what do you mean by the word intention?
Yeah. Okay. So With Intention was came from, so when I was going through this process of rebuilding my speaking muscles, I had I had to turn my career around at work. I almost got fired during this time. You can imagine panic attacks, like I'm struggling to even be in meetings, right? Thankfully I had some people believe in me, turned it around, had a couple good years under my belt. And I realized that I wanted to keep getting better. So I did a project called Success Habits, where I interviewed a bunch of high performers in our company, which then turned into like this big readout I did at our sales kickoff meeting. By the way, same meeting that I had the panic attack in like 4 years earlier. And it just lit a fire in me that I wanted to do this work more. I wanted to learn from people. And then again, in a family of teachers, I wanted to teach it as well. So the name, I started a video podcast series back in 2017, and we were searching for a name. And we were going to call it On Purpose originally. And then just vetting it with the team, we were like, what do you think about With Intention? Because when I think about intention, for me, it's this idea of forward progress and being very proactive. There's a term in soccer called playing on your front foot, which is like a very attack-minded frame of playing. And because I was dealing with some of these setbacks, I wanted to stay on my front foot. And so intention became a very powerful affirmation for me, frankly, of just keep moving forward. Go to Toastmasters every Thursday, keep, just bit by bit, brick by brick, try and build this. And so that's become the rallying cry for me. And so, yeah, now that's the
I like that.
the branding of sorts. Yeah.
Good. Thank you.
Jon, I love the tenaciousness of your language, even when you say build it brick by brick. And you showed up to Toastmasters every Thursday. And what I'm hearing there, and for the rest of you that are listening in, what I'm hearing there is you have to do the work. You know,
Yeah.
sometimes we sit back and go, someday I want to be a writer. I'm going to be a published author, but you have to start somewhere to do the work. You have to start.
Yeah. Read Pressfield. Pressfield's amazing. War of Art will change your life as a creator because he literally calls you out, and it's very short, pithy, basically posts. He's got a blog and stuff too. I think he's got publishes every Wednesday, but it's like a motivational speech every, you know, you can read it in one sitting pretty much. It's amazing. But it's that point exactly, Kathy. Like, this work is not easy, but it's so worth it once you fight through it and you learn to embrace the struggle. Because too many writers think the muse is just going to show up and it's going to be, you know, I'm going to have my candles and it's going to be amazing. And you can get there, by the way. Like, even I find when I force myself into it and I get there and I will put some music on or whatever, I can get in the zone and in the flow of things. It takes a little bit of time sometimes. But I'm a big believer in timers too. If I set a 30-minute timer, a lot of times it'll be 30 minutes and I'll be like, reset another 30, and then and it's like, next thing you know, a couple hours passes by. So, I mean, Kathy, you're doing, what's your new book called?
It's the biohacking entrepreneur.
So we can biohack ourselves. I'm a big believer in the flow state, Mihai Csikszentmihalyi, which is like, from a performance standpoint, you get in the zone. It doesn't just happen. You have to, it's stress and skill combined. And there you have to like put yourself in the fight a little bit to get there. It doesn't just show up.
Yes, thank you for that. Yes. Yeah. Tracy had a question for you. Tracy.
Yes, first I wanted to make a comment. I am also a born-again Christian. I love your testimony. I can relate to a lot of that with my own brokenness and how God has used it already in my life.
Awesome.
And I like how you said the phrase, serving is where the magic is. More people need to realize that. I had a question about hybrid publishing. I was talking to a publisher and I'm wondering about the average cost, if you know anything about what the average cost is for hybrid. And this publisher suggested making a GoFundMe page. Do you know anything about people's willingness, like your family and friends and church or whatever, to, you know, Facebook people, and you know, what kind of feedback would you get on something like that? Do you know anything about that?
Yeah, for me personally, I don't have experience with that. I did help an author get published a few years back. I do some charity work for a nonprofit called Creative Living. It's folks that have primarily spinal cord injuries. And there was a resident that wanted to be a published author, and we did a GoFundMe for him, created a little documentary style video, and raised about $10,000 for him to hire an editor and some different things to get his book out. But I don't know, that's my only experience with that. I don't know I'd love to hear from Kathy or Sandy. I don't know what's standard and what you should expect. And that, again, even the GoFundMe route, that was my one experience with it. I don't know if that's common. I did not, I paid out of pocket. For me, it was just an investment I wanted to make, but I understand the question for sure. I think it's a valid question.
What about the cost then? Like, what is the average cost?
Yeah, what do you guys think? Do you know, I know, like, so I'll tell you, I did this thing called Author Academy Elite, which was Carrie's program. Initially, it was $7,500, I think, to be part of the program and the tribe. I quickly decided I wanted more one-to-one help, so I paid more to get that directly from Carrie. Again, I already had the relationship with him. So I don't even know if he has that program anymore. Kathy, you may know, for $7,500, and I don't know what a standard fee is for a program like that.
I can talk a little bit to that, Tracy. You can probably find a hybrid publisher, I'm going to guess anywhere from like 3,000 to about 10,000. That's going to be the range. And the reason that I give such a large range there is because all of these different hybrid publishers, they all offer something different, more or less. So some just help you get the book uploaded, out there and get it published. Some take you all the way through and will actually help you get the ISBN number and do the cover art and not only get it uploaded into all of the platforms, but then help you promote it to get it to be a #1 best-selling book. So it depends. I'm so price driven. For those of you that know me in the real estate, I'm so price driven. I know how much money I have to spend, and I reverse engineer that, and then I go looking to see what can I get for this. It's like, this is my budget. What can I get for this amount of money? And I'm kind of the same way when it came to publishing. I knew how much I had that I could invest with a publisher and with a hybrid publisher. And then I went on the search, and like Jon, I knew these gals because I'd built the relationship with them for over a year, being in different groups. And so then I reverse engineered that. When I found out what they charged and what they promised, I did go out and explore and say, are there some others that can do the same thing for me for less? And they were all in that same price point. So what that told me is that I knew that the gals that I decided to go with had done their homework, and they were right in the price point where other publishing houses that did the same level, the same promises, were also in that same price point. So I felt comfortable spending the money with them, but I did my due diligence. I did my homework and my due diligence. Now, as far as creating a GoFundMe page, it depends on how big of a following you have or how big of a tribe you have. Because I tell my students all the time, put your voice out there. Your tribe will find you. Yeah. Your tribe will find you if you just put yourself out there. So if you're already doing blogging, or you have groups, or you're involved in writers workshops, or if you're already involved in some of those things, those people are your tribe. And so yes, they will help you. And then look into some scholarships. Maybe sometimes there's some scholarship money around. Some of the writers groups will have a scholarship for you to go to a writers conference, for example. And so there's some options there. So
and if you're in
Sandy.
Ohio, if you want to check into the Ohio Arts Council, if you know how to write a grant request, that'd be a way to go. But another way, something called Patreon, Patreon. Look in, you might want to just look and explore that. I have a lot of writer friends who make a living. Oh, okay, not a living, but they make some income by saying, if you pay me $2 a month or $1 a month or more, I will send you a story, a newsletter, something about that you've created, that you've written, and they pay you. It comes out of my PayPal account, and I am paying a couple authors just to read what they're writing once a month. So it's a way of maybe setting up that Jon talked about, that goal that, I'm not going to disappoint my followers or my readers. Therefore, even though I've got this going on, I will write because they're paying me, for goodness sake. So that, just look into Patreon, and the Patreon page, all that Substack is another one where you pay, where you can subscribe to people who write and so forth. So there's a couple of things out there, especially if you know folks in your group who would be willing to take a chance on you. And a lot of times for $1 or $2 a month, it doesn't seem like a lot to them. But to you, knowing that you're indebted to an extent to these folks who for you, it helps. It's a good incentive if you need an incentive.
Sandy, thank you. That's great advice. Yeah, Cheryl.
Well, I'm actually addressing Tracy, but the others who have commented and not commented. I have 3 points. Number 1 is, be sure you have done everything that you know to do and that you're capable of doing on your writing before you pay anybody any money for doing something. There are a lot of people out there who want to charge you a flat rate up front. I've had friends who have self-published and they had to do all the work. They had to do all the marketing. They had to do all the writing and editing. There was very little, if anything, maybe getting the ISBN number that this company did for her. And it was very traumatic for her. So do everything you know or can learn how to do in advance. Don't pay anyone a big amount, and I'm talking about thousands because I'm also very money conscious. Get a house that is in your field. I don't know, you probably have written some Christian, maybe Christian romance, I'm guessing on that. But have you written a script that you're ready to publish?
Yeah, it's a children's book, and it's more than being a best-selling author. I just want to get my message out about a very specific story.
Okay. And have you attended a lot of writers? The library will have writers in from time to time and have book sales. And you can learn so much. They'll have 10, 20, 30, 40 writers at a time. And you can just go around and pick brains and find out, well, here's your book. You published with them. Do you like them? Did they do what you wanted? Did you find it financially? You can ask all the questions you want for free at the library, especially when there's a book sale on.
That's a good idea. I'm sorry to just pop on here and have no, this is just newly looking into this. I didn't even know where to go.
We're glad you're here. No, we
Yeah,
appreciate
I
you being here.
appreciate the feedback.
That's why we're here.
Yes, yes. And Cheryl, thank you so much for your input. That is very valuable. Thank you for that.
And I'm glad to do a read through for no charge, Tracy. I have a daughter who writes children's books.
Oh my goodness.
She's unpublished yet, but she's there doing it. And I have a son who has 3 books ready to publish, but he's running through this too. I may put him in touch with Jon.
Yeah, make sure that you connect with each other before the call is over today.
Yeah.
Yes,
Yeah,
either in the chat or somewhere so that you can connect. Anyone else have any comments or questions for Jon? Jon, tell us how folks can get in touch with you. Did we already do that?
Yeah, I did put just my website in the chat. Feel free to jump on there. I have a free newsletter that I publish every Saturday morning with a little bit of inspiration. And then you can find me on LinkedIn. I'm on Instagram, Facebook, all the social media stuff. X, I guess we call it now, not Twitter. Yeah, would love to hear from you. Would love to connect. And yeah, it's such a pleasure to be with you all. I really appreciate the time.
Jon, we appreciate you and you taking your time to be with us today. Thank you so much.
Absolutely, my pleasure.
Sure.
And we're going to stay on. I am going to stop the recording, but I'm going to stay on so that you folks can connect with each other. So hang in there.